Thank you for coming. Thanks for being here today for our interest meeting for Trinity College. I think I've met all of you. My name is Steve Whitaker. I am the president of Trinity College of Louisville, as well as one of the pastors of Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to this Trinity College interest meeting. I will try not to keep you too long today, but I want to tell you about why we're here. I learned recently about a place called the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge, England. The Cavendish Laboratory has been home to some world-defining science. In this laboratory, scientists discovered the electron and the neutron. In this laboratory, the first experiments to split atoms occurred. Not long after, Crick and Watson discovered DNA there, for which they would be awarded the Nobel Prize. And that's all impressive, but what matters for us is that all this science took place under the banner of a Bible verse. Inscribed over the door to the Cavendish Library is Psalm 111, verse 2. It says, "The works of the Lord are great, sought out of all them that have pleasure therein." Or, as it says in our English Standard Version, "Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them." Now, I chose that verse as one of the theme verses for Trinity College before I knew anything about the Cavendish Laboratory. And while I don't expect any Nobel Prize winning discoveries to occur under our roof, I also don't want to rule anything out. So, could happen. We'll see. Now, as Trinity continues on into our second year, and as we work to expand our programs and our offerings, our fundamental principles remain the same. Psalm 111, verse 2 is still at the heart of what we're about. And in this verse, the great works of the Lord are studied. They are sought out. That word can be translated as seek, as it is over the door of the Cavendish Laboratory. My Hebrew lexicon says that the word could be translated seek with application, or study and put into practice. And that's the kind of study that we can get behind in Sovereign Grace, I think. Furthermore, it says in this verse that the great works of the Lord are studied by those who delight in them. The sequence here is interesting. Studied by those who delight. In the grammar of this verse, the delighting precedes the studying. I don't know if he had this verse in mind, but it sounds a lot like Augustine's famous saying. In Latin, it says, "Credo ut intelligam." In other words, believe in order that you may understand. And I love that this verse brings together study and delight. This is not a common word pair among the college students that I know. And I can't promise you that every Trinity student feels this combination every single day. We do work them hard. But I'm certain that this is the overall sentiment of our students. And it is the aim of Trinity College, to bring together study of the Lord and delight in the Lord in a way that changes hearts and minds for the Lord. And we need institutions. We need colleges, as well as families, churches, schools, businesses that will bring together study and delight. Think about how many institutions of higher learning, I'm thinking here like Harvard and Princeton and other colleges like them, that were founded with the same purpose as the Cavendish Laboratory, that now have as their banner over their door ungodly and anti-Christian ideologies. I like the way John Piper describes this in his new book, the book that we just received last night, Foundations for Lifelong Learning, Education in Serious Joy. Piper writes, "One of the aims of lifelong learning is to become the kind of observers and thinkers and evaluators whose hearts respond with feelings that are well-directed, proportionate, and full of life. God himself is the primary reality to be observed in all observation. He is the ground of all right understanding. His worth and will are the standards of all evaluation. Therefore, he is the source of supreme satisfaction. When he holds that supreme position as the sun in the solar system of our affections, all the other planets move toward their God-designed orbit. We are well on our way to be a properly educated people." I love how Piper puts that, and that's exactly what we're after. Trinity College is aiming to produce the kind of observers and thinkers and evaluators whose hearts respond with feelings that are well directed, proportionate, and full of life. So thanks for being here today to hear more about how we are helping our students get planets moving toward their God-designed orbit. All right, first, it might be helpful now for me to update you on where we are in the development of Trinity College. The most important thing that I'm going to say is that we are very aware of the grace of God in allowing us to operate Trinity College and serve our churches by transferring the gospel to the next generation. The Lord has been very kind to send us students. If you don't have students, you don't have a college. So we're grateful for the students who have the faith and the eyes to see the ways that Trinity College can serve their souls and prepare them for their future. By extension, we're also very grateful for parents. We're grateful for the parents of these students who are exercising wonderful faith to encourage their kids to attend Trinity College. We're incredibly grateful for their support. The Lord has also been so kind to provide us with our faculty and staff. Dr. Josh Blunt, now he's Dr. Blunt, Reed Williamson, Josh Pinnell, my wife Nicole Whitaker, all of them ably assisted by our administrative assistant, Mayanna Holland. Our faculty and staff are one of many visible expressions of God's kindness to us. Not only are they each highly competent professors, experts in their fields, they're also mature, godly Christians who exemplify everything we desire for these students to grow into. And the Lord has been very kind to allow us to witness good fruit emerging from our labors in the first year of our graduating bridge year students. We're going to hear about them in just a moment. Finally, the Lord has been very kind to provide us with our daily bread. Some very generous donors are making possible this work that we are doing to educate and pass on the gospel to the next generation. Psalm 118 verse 23 says, "This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes." So here's where we are. We are now in our second year. We're almost halfway through the year, as a matter of fact. This year we have 8 students spanning 2 different years. We have 2 sophomores, the rest are all freshmen. We have added a new dual enrollment plan for high school seniors, which I'll tell you about shortly. But first, to understand the difference that Trinity College is making in the lives of our students, I want you to hear from Blake and Sheri Stehr about how the bridge year prepared their daughter, Ashley, for the next phase of her education. Excuse me. So let me introduce you to Blake and Sheri. Blake and Sheri's daughter, Ashley, joined our inaugural class of the bridge year last year. And I want you to hear their perspective on Ashley's experience. I need to set the stage here by saying that Ashley will always have a special place in Trinity College history. She was the first student to apply to Trinity College and the first student to move to Louisville for Trinity College. But even more important than that, Ashley distinguished herself very quickly as a model student. She's very bright, very engaged with the material that she was learning, obviously soaking up everything that she read. And as we discussed, she applied things really well. She was very quick to serve in the church. She quickly became good friends with all of my kids, especially my daughters. And for that reason, I want to commend both of you. Thank you so much for your investment in your daughter and sharing her with us for the year. So our experience with Ashley speaks loudly of your parenting and your preparation. Well done and thank you. And now I'd like you to join us if you would. I know your time is quite valuable, so thank you so much for joining us. So you guys are from Covenant Fellowship outside of Philly, and Ashley is the youngest of your 4 children. So I'm not sure I remember. I don't know if I knew. I think I might, but I don't know if I remember. How did Ashley come to hear about the bridge year and end up joining us? Go
ahead. Ashley has ears to hear. So okay. When you came to present at Covenant Fellowship, she honed in on this opportunity to be part of a new
That's great.
college. And I think Blake and I, for us personally, we had eyes for her on university immediately after high school because she had the aptitude for that.
Yeah.
And then you discussed Trinity College and the bridge year, and that really piqued her interest because her background and her desire for academics was more technical in engineering. Okay. And so for us, your presentation was beautiful, but it kind of flew over because we knew that she wanted to go technical. But the bridge year provided her the opportunity to learn many parts of the classical education and biblical background. So she heard it from you, and it really stuck with her.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And it really started a lot of conversation in the home.
Good. Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, one thing about Ashley is she's very, she involves us in these discussions and decisions. And then we had the opportunity just to talk to her about her interest in the school, how she would maybe put off a year and then get started in her college. And then she threw out the real big surprise. I want to live on campus, or at Trinity College in Louisville. So her brother, who was just in a program the year before, where he was a part of a post fellows transition. Yeah, he said, you're not going to really gain everything you really should unless you're living there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that is great advice.
Mind you, he was 5 years older than
Yes.
So.
What were your initial impressions when Ashley first announced that she wanted to do this? What did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it put a bit of fear in us because here's our youngest, and she has, such great potential, and so we were, aware that, we weren't sure where this was going to go and how this was going to play out. So there was now an opportunity for us to respond in faith as she was responding in faith.
She was responding in faith immediately.
Yeah.
And she had to kind of carry us along, and she really did help us, and she challenged us about some of the misgivings that we were presenting, and she looked at us both and said, I just would like you to consider, are you taking this more by what you feel you can control or know versus faith.
Yeah.
And so we had to pray about it, and she helped us to
That's so great.
walk in faith.
Yeah, she is a courageous young woman.
Yeah.
So she moved, and one of the goals, part of the vision of Trinity College, has always been to have a college that's embedded in the life of a local church. And that's the way education was conducted for about 1,800 years. And then it was only about 150 years ago or so that we handed all that over to the state. So we thought, okay, great, let's bring this back. And I'm curious then, from your perspective, how did being a part of Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville, living in Louisville and being in that church community, how did that grow Ashley, serve her faith, serve her education while she was with us?
Well, I like how Josh Blunt said it. We need thick communities. And Ashley came from a thick community, a Covenant Fellowship.
That's right.
Had she not had the church in Louisville, things would have looked drastically different. She really developed strong relationships through the church. She would have developed those, and did develop those relationships within the academics, of course. But it was really the church experience, that fully orbed experience, that helped her.
Love that.
And she thrived in that. She really enjoyed that.
And it took her expectation when she started was she was going to meet others that were her age. And that's what she had at Covenant. But upon arrival, it was, those who were younger in high school or those who were older in post-college. And so then, she had this wrestling. And she really wrestled with the Lord, and we encouraged her, to find ways to press in relationally, and she really owned that and went after, both sides where she could learn to be mentored from older Christian in the church, and from Karen Ballinger and others in the church. That was just something that for us was really a comfort. And then, you mentioned she became close friends with your daughters. But there's, young ladies like that where she really had a vision to give, and really, try to, help them where they were and meet them where they were. So that really helped her to get outside of herself in a
Yeah.
wonderful way.
We encouraged her not to wait to be all in.
Yeah.
Good.
If she was going to go to Kentucky, she needed to be all in the program, all in the church right away.
Well, she listened
from the
because
gate.
she did exactly that.
And she
Yeah.
came away with such a vision of sovereign grace and the
Oh,
church,
yeah.
and she just really came home with an excitement. This is the values, these are the virtues, all the things we've recently been reviewing ourselves as churches. These are things she caught and
That's
really are looking to really model.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So maybe just with the little bit of time we have left, maybe tell us, what is she doing now, and how did the bridge year prepare her for that experience?
Wow, did it ever?
Oh, good.
As I think about Sovereign Grace's model of the Pastor's College, where you're taking very well-versed men and their families and bringing them to the Pastor's College to hone and help them, go into the pastorate, I think it's not so dissimilar to the bridge year, where you have students coming from, by and large, well learned families where it comes to doctrine and theology and good solid background. And I think for Ashley, the bridge year just honed all of that for her, so that her doctrine, her theology was, the depths and the breadths of what she learned there was incredible. I can't imagine a better preparation
Good.
for her now, going to a very liberal college. Where
She's at an engineering school in Widener University, right outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And she from day one began to realize this is going to come with some real faith to engage in my class, and I want to engage. That's what I really spent time preparing for in the bridge year. And she, with fear and trembling, went into it, and she's really going into it wisely and carefully, but intentionally. Knowing there's some, she's going to be a small voice. They've already made their point clear that the Bible and Christianity are really irrelevant and don't really have a space, but she's seeking to graciously make a space.
create a space.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's really great. Oh, it's so encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Well, tell me then, maybe last question, what would you say to other parents who are considering the bridge year, or their students thinking about the bridge year, maybe Trinity College? What would you want them to know as parents?
Some really helpful thoughts.
Yeah, I would say that engage your student, your young adult, in a way that helps them to consider not just what college or what major they might want to go into, because I personally feel the bridge year can help all across the board, all majors, all students of all personalities, to be able to take the gospel into not only their academics, but then into their vocation. And that's the most important thing we can do. Now, if they would go from the bridge year right into the 4-year Trinity College, that would be beautiful as well. But if they are like an Ashley, coming from a background that's not going into liberal arts per se, do not let that dissuade you from considering this program.
Perfect.
Because it is an excellent program.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and as a father, I think just be open and ready for the Lord to shift gears on what your expectations may be. That was certainly my experience, and we're so thankful. We're so thankful for the pastors, you and your wife Steve, and just the professors and the other students that just made this experience so rich for her.
Wonderful. Well, everybody at Trinity College misses Ashley very much, and we thank God for her and thank God for you. So thank you so much for taking time to share your perspective with us. Very helpful.
Welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you. That is super encouraging. So really, really helpful. Now, I want to tell you a little bit more about our academic programs. This year we have made some slight modifications to our curriculum. Students are taking a number of classes that we offered last year and will continue offering, as well as a couple unique opportunities this year. We have classes underway in biblical anthropology, in biblical theology and hermeneutics, New Testament Greek 1, and we've added in New Testament Greek 2 this year. Introduction to Great Books is new this year. History of Christian Philosophy and Theology, that's another new class. Systematic Theology. We're going to continue offering writing and rhetoric and church history as part of our program. And there is so much good stuff that happens in our classroom. One of our classes that I'm most excited about is called it's Theology 211. It's called Practical Theology. And so here's how the syllabus describes this. It says, throughout the Bible, there is a close connection between hearing and obeying. In Theology 211, students will read classic Christian texts with the goal of putting into careful and deliberate practice what is learned in this and in other classes. And so by classic Christian texts, we especially mean the formative works that have shaped the values and the virtues of sovereign grace and made our denomination, our family of churches, what it is. So since beginning the semester, so just in the last 2.5 months, we have read excerpts from books like R.C. Sproul's The Holiness of God, Packer's Knowing God, Stott's The Cross of Christ, Owen's On the Mortification of Sin, David Mathis, The Habits of Grace, David Gibson, Living Life Backwards on Ecclesiastes, and C.S. Lewis's book, The Weight of Glory. So we've tried to pick some of the best and most influential books and steer our students to some of the best and most influential chapters of those books. And so every one of our students now has a reading list of books they hope to come back to and spend time on once they get to break and they have the freedom to read whatever they want to read. So the aims of this class, really all our classes, are in keeping with an essay that I recently read by D.A. Carson. It's called A Biblical Theology of Education. And Carson explains, he says this, he says, it follows that owing to the very nature of what it means in Scripture to know God, our educational priorities can never be merely curricular. It is not enough to train students to recite the Nicene Creed or identify who the left-handed judge is. They must learn to integrate their knowledge of the Bible and theology with personal faith, ethics, including personal, sexual, and social ethics, with goals, use of time and money, and relationships with fellow believers in the life of the church. They must learn how to conduct themselves with those of different faith and with unbelievers whose carefree abandonment of all religious claims is utterly alien to us. All these things and more flow out of what Scripture and theology teach. That is how Scripture educates us. What Carson means is, what he's saying here in describing this impulse to move from theology to practice, to apply what we've learned and press the truth of the gospel out into daily life. That's been central to how Sovereign Grace has built churches and built a family of churches over 40 years. Without ever sacrificing the center, without ever losing sight or keeping the gospel at the center, then we pay attention to how does this work out into real life? That impulse was exemplified by the Puritans and has continued to this day. I think CJ and Mark Prater and others have led Sovereign Grace into this way of thinking for years. And now we're getting the chance to contribute that same kind of impulse in higher education. So I want to finish by telling you about a couple of ways that we're doing this. The first is called the Timothy Scholarship. We want to launch, we're working to fundraise for a referral-based scholarship. So this is named for Paul's encouragement to Timothy to set the believers an example in 1 Timothy 4:12. The idea here is that a pastor or a pastor's wife can nominate a student from his or her church who might be well suited for the Bridge Year program. And then we'll invite that student to apply for the scholarship and the Bridge Year based on that nomination. And so we have a QR code out at the information table where pastors can apply for that, nominate a student for that. Another aspect of our academic program we're particularly encouraged about is dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is very hot right now among college administrators generally. It's easy to understand why. It's in high demand because parents and students view it as a kind of double dipping, right? Finish out your high school career while earning college credits, sometimes at a cheaper tuition rate. And so as a curriculum designer, I was initially very skeptical of dual enrollment. I was very concerned that we would run the risk of diluting our academic quality in order to accommodate students who are younger and less mature. And I thought, we're not going to do that. If that's what dual enrollment means, we're not doing it. But we determined instead, after some discussion among our board and our professors, what if instead of diluting the product, what if we just ask high school students to raise their game? And let's elevate this to the level of college, and let's maintain and expect academic rigor. And I'm very pleased to tell you that that's exactly what's happened. This year we have 4 dual enrollment students, 2 who are part-time and 2 who are full-time. And these students have proved quite capable. They've jumped right into all the academic requirements that we've set for them. And we've seen this as something of an experiment this year, but I think it is going to be an aspect of Trinity College going into the future that could really serve students and families. I'm also excited to tell you that we're working to add a new academic track. We currently have the Bridge Year, which is a 1-year certificate program. We'd like to build out a 4-year bachelor's program. But we see there could be value in having an intermediate step and having a 2-year associate's program. And so I've been in discussion with several of the board members, particularly with John Loftus about this. The idea would be to create a platform that would fulfill general education requirements at as many schools as possible and work to configure those syllabi to make the classes transferable to as many other institutions as possible. So believe it or not, there's actually third-party academic services that manage the transfer of credits between colleges. And so we are in talks with a Christian version of these that handle transfer credits between many of the larger Christian colleges whose names you might know. And we're in talks with them, what would it take for us to join that program and to make it so that our credits could then transfer to other schools. And then finally, my wife has begun a new work for middle school and high school students that we're calling Trinitas Classical Academy. That is the Latin word for Trinity. I bet you guessed that. This cottage school option this year is being hosted locally, but our hope is next year to be able to expand and begin offering classes online, much like I've done with the Worldview class over the last 2 years. So if you or someone you know might be interested in online classes for homeschooling middle school or high school students, one of the best ways to find out more about that would be to sign up for our mailing list. It's at the bottom of every single page of our website, trinitycollegelud.com, and then you'll be the first to get that information. So let me tell you about where we're headed from here and how you could help. A few things. First, sign up. If you haven't already, sign up for the newsletter so that you're getting that. We are beginning to push out more content, and we want to begin providing that as a resource and as a service to parents, to students, to other churches. So again, you'll see that at the bottom. There's a QR code bottom of the website, and there's a QR code out at the table in the lobby where you can scan for that. We also have a table with a bunch of swag. So take some swag, take a shirt or a mug, a pen, a lanyard, take them for either yourself or for prospective students at home. I'm sure they would love to have that and get them thinking about Trinity. We'd also be grateful if you would help us to spread the word. So we post often on social media, and if you are on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you can like or heart or share, or I don't know all the different terminology. You can do the things that you do. It's not really my field, not my expertise, but you can do those things and help us too it could be as simple as having a conversation with a student at your church. If there is a high school student, it could be just as simple. Next time you bump into them, ask them, what are your plans? Have you thought about Trinity College? Have you even thought about giving it a year? How that happened for us this past year, one of our students this year, he joined us because late winter last year, I bumped into him. He was a senior, and his name is Tate. I said, Tate, where are you going for school? What are you doing? He's like, I don't know. And so I asked, we have a college right here. Have you thought about it? And there's a 1-year option. You can even try it out. You don't have to commit to 4 years. You can try it for 1 year. And he said, that's interesting. I'll talk to my parents about it. And so, of course, I circled around to his mom and like, hey, Tate's going to be talking to you about this. She really wanted him to do it. She was excited about it. And so we were able to work together. And actually, Tate, it didn't take long at all for Tate to get a vision. And he has become an incredible student, does a great job in the classroom, and is so excited to be a part of Trinity College. So we're incredibly grateful for that. I want to end with an appeal. I want to come back to the John Piper quotation I read earlier. he said, God is the source of supreme satisfaction. When he holds that supreme position as the sun in the solar system of our affections, all the other planets move toward their God-designed orbit. We are well on our way to be a properly educated people. Students don't have to come from Trinity College they don't have to come to Trinity College to discover that Jesus is the source of supreme satisfaction. Thankfully, the Lord can work that lesson through many different avenues. But if they do come, we will certainly tell them. This will be one of the main things that we try to get across to them. And so again, my appeal is if you know anybody, I'm not asking you to persuade them, but could you help plant a seed that might get them thinking about Trinity College?